If my understanding is correct, your view is that in the United States, there's a patriarchy. Is that correct?
Yes.
Global patriarchy in all countries, essentially. Perhaps stronger in other countries. Some countries have a stronger patriarchy than others.
Yeah.
Okay. And are women oppressed under the patriarchy?
Yes.
Are you oppressed under the patriarchy?
Not legally, but yes.
So what are some of the ways that you're oppressed?
Okay. Ways that I'm oppressed under the patriarchy. Objectification. Let's say, even though it was enacted by another woman, when I came on the show last time, she accused someone of trying to see my no-no zone as a female. If I was a man, I don't think anyone would have accused that at all.
Boo, tomato, tomato. So even when women exhibit character flaws, it's because of the patriarchy. They've just internalized the patriarchy, of course. So even when women have problems, it's still because of the patriarchy, of course.
Wait, what?
That doesn't sound like oppression.
That sounds kind of bad for the
yeah, that
the
sounds
man.
bad for the men, not good for
the man who that happened
Yeah,
to.
it is bad for the men, but what I'm saying is the over-sexualization of women over time has grown to become bad for men. Because
how are you? I don't understand. How's that you being oppressed by the patriarchy thing?
that's a universal. Every woman is oppressed by the patriarchy in that sense. Or I guess I don't want to.
That would be the opposite.
Okay, I don't want to say oppressed by the
you gotta
patriarchy.
take this chart and
every
you gotta
woman,
flip it over, right?
Every woman experiences sexism in the fact that they're typically seen as objects of attraction before objects of intelligence.
What? So I don't know. Okay.
Like
even I had a comment.
Usually women are like physical trophies rather than their value is based. You've said this before on the last podcast. Their value is based on their fertility rather than their intellect.
That is one value.
Okay.
For attractiveness.
The patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
How does the patriarchy impact me?
Yeah.
Oppress you.
Oppress you.
Based on what we were talking about last time, you guys think that a good woman is a mother, right? And a wife, right?
Did we even make that
I'm
argument?
not sure that... No, there could be good women who cannot be mothers. Tons of them. There could be.
So
yes.
what are they supposed to do in life if they don't get a job?
Adopt.
I mean, they can do all sorts of
Adopting
things
is
in
virtuous.
life, absent having a job. I mean, they can still be married and still be taken care of by their husbands, and they could still adopt. They could do all sorts of things.
Okay, but I'm saying you think that a woman's role is to be a caretaker in the home. You don't think a woman should go out and be president of the United States?
Hell no. Hell no. We don't need no female president, especially right now in the U.S. We need a president that's willing to put their foot in somebody's ass. Yeah, I said it. That's why I respect Putin. I know that's a controversial opinion, but I have a mutual respect for Putin because Putin, he's not going to just send nobody to kill. He's also willing to kill. That's the kind of leader that Putin is. Did you know that JFK volunteered into World War II? He volunteered to go into World War II. This motherfucker was in the middle of the ocean on a banana boat with a small crew with torpedoes on the side of his banana boat trying to sink Japanese ships. A Japanese warship came and split his little boat into two, so they're just treading water right now in the middle of the ocean. JFK, treading water in the middle of the ocean. This guy takes one of his crew members who was injured, puts him in his teeth, backpedals miles to shore, washes up on shore, and he draws on a coconut to the indigenous people, gives it to them. They take it to some U.S. troops. Luckily, they took it to U.S. troops instead of Japanese troops on this island, wherever he landed, and rescues the people that he was on the boat with. Since that time, he had to wear a back brace. When you see JFK, during his speeches, he's wearing a back brace because of that. That's the type of leader I want. Instead of these puppets that's controlled by foreign governments, I want a leader that's willing to put his foot up somebody's ass. I don't need no female leaders right now. George Washington, also known as Crazy George. We need a Crazy George. We don't need no female. Hell no.
No, I don't think that well, I can't even get into that. But
That's real leadership. Instead of sending people into war and you don't even understand nothing about it, being willing to also join the war with them. That's real leadership and not just being a boss. That's the difference between being a leader and being a boss. And I think that people, when we had leaders that were willing to also go into battle, just like they expected the people who worked underneath them to, we were better off, in my opinion.
let's just say no. Generally speaking, yes, I think that women are happy, healthier at home rather than in the workforce because they all fucking hate it. And every time they get pulled on it, they don't like fucking working. They don't like working long hours. They don't like working. They don't like. Do you like working?
Yeah.
You do? Come on, really?
I find it to be more. I'd rather have a fulfilling career in my future than
A
stay
family?
at home all day. No.
Yeah, this is how I know this is a kid that has no life experience, because as soon as you actually go out into the world, you realize hardly anybody has a job that they're passionate about. Most people just do what's necessary in order to provide for their family, and they're passionate about their family. And that's the only reason they do work and take on that responsibility. So this is how you know this is a kid. She's in above her head. She's in too deep right now.
I mean, I would.
Are you going to outsource the care of your kids to a Venezuelan woman named Marcy, or like, what do you?
No.
Is that what you're going to do, or are you going to stay home with your kids?
Why doesn't my husband stay home?
Well, because generally speaking, men tend to be able to make a lot more money because they work a lot more hours.
Right.
Actually, women tend to. I'm pretty sure more women have college degrees than men do in
That's
today's
true, but
society.
that
That's
doesn't mean
typically
that
an
they make more
indicator
money.
of earning potential. Yeah, it's true. That
Yeah, I
doesn't-
think it's like 54% of people don't even use their college degree at all. So at this point, I mean, more than half of the people who end up getting degrees don't end up even using it. So
they make more money. But what I'm saying is a woman could very easily today have a higher paying job than her husband.
She could,
Yeah.
but they usually don't marry men when the man has the higher paying job.
Right.
That's the big problem. There was a
What's
whole
the
thing
evidence for that
done-
claim?
Well, you can go to a channel called Ho Math. Not kidding. It's called
my God.
called Ho Math, where he breaks all of this down. And one of the things that he breaks down, and he's using
We've had him on the show, by the way.
yeah, he's using
Smart
publicly
dude.
available data in order to do this, is he shows that most women, when you look at the earning potential inside of a house where there's wife and then later kids, the earning potential of the man is almost always higher than a woman before she'll get married to him. In fact, the fact that this doesn't happen is one of the reasons that people clung on to the idea of hypergamy, because it's so commonplace that women will not marry if the social status of the man is less than her, including with earning potential.
I mean, just go around the street and ask typical women. They'll say they want a man that makes more than them. Even women who have a lot of money will still say they want men that make more than them, which to me is just a form of greed. I don't understand why you would fight for equality and fight to make the same amount of money that a man makes, but you're not willing to take on the responsibility that men are willing to take on, and that is providing for a family. Women who make a lot of money still want a man that makes more money than them, and it just doesn't make sense to me because it just seems greedy. It just seems greedy. If you already make enough money, why do you need more money? Why not just have a family at that point? But it's because most of the time women, like he's saying, want men that make more than them.
Can a mother not earn money and also be a mother?
Yeah, I mean, that used to be the status quo. They used to either work out of the home, or they would do secretary work, or they
Right.
would do, education. They
Right.
would do work like that. In fact, feminism completely failed in its job and its duty and its promise to women that it was going to make the world a safer place for women and children, and that it was going to, give all these different benefits to women. It really hasn't given them much.
We
in the
don't
way
want
of
safety.
benefits.
We want freedom of choice to make our own choices in
And
society.
what's interesting is even when you go further back, like when people talk about women not working, they're talking about a very small period. Even in the early 1900s, when the average family size was 8, like women would have 8 kids on average, women still helped men on the farm before industrialization. Right. But even if you go even further back than that, women have always worked. Women were monumental when it came to farming, when it came to agriculture. At the beginning of agriculture, women were monumental. As we know, men were hunters and women were gatherers, and majority of the calories that we've eaten throughout history came from gathering, actually. So women were it's actually to the point now where women can see different colors than men. And you can look this up. Women have a bigger spectrum of colors that they can see because orange and reddish orange could be the difference between life or death when you're a gatherer. So over time, women have developed even a broader spectrum of colors that they can see because women were so monumental in gathering. So this whole idea that women just didn't work, even when women chose not to work, because they still could work. Women were still teachers, like Andrew's saying here. They were still nurses. They were still secretaries. Really, a lot of the jobs that they still choose to do today were the ones that they were doing in this time. But when they had the opportunity to not do those jobs and prioritize family even more, they chose to do that. The difference between women now and women in the past isn't the fact that women could work. Women could always work. There were always female authors, female entrepreneurs, all these types of things. But the difference now between those women is those women still prioritize family. So those women would go be a secretary. They would go be a waitress. They would go be a nurse, go be a teacher, and they would bring that money home and still prioritize family. Nowadays, women go, I want to make money to prioritize myself. That's the only difference. It's just more selfishness. Feminism just taught women to be selfish. That's all it was.
Not be
only difference.
assigned to a role of mother and caretaker.
That wasn't the promise of feminism. The promise of feminism was that society was going to be a lot safer and women were going to be a lot happier.
You can't give one universal promise of feminism.
Well, we can look at what the original suffragettes were pushing for, and yeah, we can look at their writings and see what they said. And that was one of the big promises of feminism, was that they were going to make the world a safer place, and that women were going to be happier. And every metric we look at, women are more miserable than ever. And their mental health, 1 in 4 suffers from a mental illness. That's crazy to me. 1 in 4 women suffers from some kind of mental illness. They don't seem like they're happier and more well-adjusted. They seem like they're more miserable and not well-adjusted. And while it's true that you can sit here and tell me that you love working, I literally don't believe you, because nobody loves working. Nobody loves it.
And she's in college, so she probably doesn't work. That's why she's saying that, just because she's been told to say that.
Like, very few people. You just happen to be, like, for instance, how many hours did you work last week? Was it 60? Was it 50? Was it less than 40?
I'm literally a full-time student. It was not 40, 50,
Come on
or
now.
60.
Right.
Come on now.
Maybe 15?
What are you talking about?
About that, but that's not relevant to the point. The point
And that's
is
why I
that
say that feminism is just capitalism with man-hating. That's all it is. She's been told that she should love her career and love her job like a robot. She's just been taught to say that. She doesn't even have a career or a job, but she thinks that she's going to love her career and her job more than she's going to love the potential for children. I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing in this world that you're going to love more than your kids once you have them. It's just not, I mean, I don't see it. I don't see it.
if I enjoy going out and doing my career more than I do taking care of the kids at home, then why am I tied down to that outcome just because I'm physically weaker? That's
You
the
never
whole
were
point.
tied down to that outcome.
Yeah.
You could just
In
not
your
get
view.
you could just not get married. But if you are married, the optimal system, if you actually value your children, is to stay at home with them. How are they going to get better results than their mother at home with them while their father works? That is the most. If you can give me a more optimal system for raising children than mom at home while dad works, I'd love to hear it.
A more optimal system for raising children
Yeah.
than both parents at home. Neither work and they're taking care of the
that would
children.
be entailed impossible, right? For most people.
What's the difference between that and having
hang
dad
on,
take
hang
care
on.
of the
Before we
kids
get into that,
and
I'll,
mom
I'll ask
work?
her next question, just like I've been answering all of your questions, but answer mine. Can you actually think of a better system than mom at home with the kids and dad working? What could possibly be more optimal for the children than that?
For the children, having 2 moms.
That would be more optimal?
The most unstable relationship that you could ever possibly have. The highest rates of domestic violence, the highest rates of cheating, the highest rates of divorce are lesbian relationships. 2 moms, that's literally the least stable family type that you could have for kids. That's an insane take.
Probably get nurtured better. You guys say mothers are better caretakers.
So I just want to make sure I got this right. First of all, the babies would have to come from somewhere, right?
I thought adoption was a huge thing that you just talked about earlier.
Yeah, but even if we were to entail that, let's just say I granted your argument and 2 moms would be optimal based on them adopting children. There's only going to be X amount of lesbians, which is a very small demographic, and X amount of children to adopt, which is also a small demographic. So that still could not actually be optimal. Even if I granted that it was better in certain circumstances, it could not actually be optimal for most of society to do this. That would not be optimal.
And neither is a woman staying at home and a man going out and working, because increasingly more we see the need for women to go out and work.
Why? No, we don't. If women retracted from the marketplace tomorrow and stayed home, men's wages would necessarily double or triple.
Okay. So if all women didn't work and their rights were attached to the men that were next to them, what if their husband dies?
Then they would do what has always been done and be able to inherit land.
Yeah.
Like, I can give you an example of this happening. George, you know who George Washington was?
Yes.
Who was he?
The first president of the United States.
Yeah. He was married to Martha Washington. And they had a big falling out at one point in their marriage because she didn't want to free her slaves, which she inherited. As part of a giant estate, she didn't want to free them, and he couldn't make her because women have always been allowed to own property. That's never been a problem. And if the man dies, though, they always were able to inherit his. That's why she was able to inherit from her father.
What about bank accounts and credit cards?
What about them?
That's a very recent development.
That's true, but do you know when it came to credit cards why it was that women didn't have credit cards? It's because men were responsible for their debt and women couldn't incur debt. It was illegal. So women couldn't go with a credit card and spend at a store. The man, if she did, the man was responsible for everything she spent for her husband.
Legally responsible. Like, the dude could actually go to jail and do time because he wasn't paying off his wife's debt. Like, oh no, women aren't allowed to sign up for usury 22% interest rates for credit cards. Oh no, women weren't allowed to get shafted by 22% interest rates. What a tragedy. Like, it's insane. These takes are insane.
So that actually made a lot of sense, especially if women aren't working. They might need lines of credit, but that would fall to the men. So,
and then you look at the debt nowadays. Like, people will always talk about feminism boosted the GDP, yeah, by like 350%. But number one, America was already the highest in GDP, so we already had the highest GDP at the time when women flooded the workforce. But also, too, our debt was significantly lower. Now that women have went into the workforce, our debt has went up by 1,900%. So GDP went up by 350%, but the numbers I've seen, debt is going up by 1,900%. So it hasn't really helped now, has it?
Needed to go get whatever they needed, put it on their man's account. That would take care of that. Pretty good system. And if it comes to what's optimal for children, doesn't that seem like it's pretty optimal?
Black Flame Nova donated $200. I wish more women on this show were like you. Even though you're a feminist, at least you're respectful, listen and have a good chat.
Yeah.
Also,
true.
props to Andrew for handling this so well. Haters can shut up now.
She is doing a good job.
Yeah.
She could be screaming.
I don't know where we were at. But yeah, we were just discussing why that was with credit cards and bank accounts. It made a lot of sense.
Yeah. But that's, you guys were asking me to list examples of like patriarchy or oppression. That's one of them, right? Being unable to
That doesn't sound very oppressive.
manage your own finances.
That doesn't sound very oppressive. It sounds like you can just go get whatever the hell you want. And
Like,
somebody else.
guys, we have to stop with this oppression narrative. Stop conceding that. Stop conceding that men were mean to women in the past. Sure, some women got slapped by their husbands, but those guys were always in trouble for it. It was never okay. It was never a good thing. But if women were oppressed by men, women would be the ones that died in war. Okay? You can't say that misogyny was rampant and men hated women, but men were dying in millions, by the millions, in war. 15-year-old boys were sent into trenches with a little musket to die in war. That's not oppressive to women. So this whole narrative, stop allowing and conceding this to feminists. There was no history where women were oppressed. Men have always, in Western cultures at least, fought and died on behalf of women. When you're the one that gets to stay home when people go die in war on your behalf, you're not the one that's oppressed. It's very simple.
Else has to pay for
That's
it.
very simple.
I don't know why that would be oppression. That sounds like the opposite of oppression. Like, if you were to go to a man, do you think, and you said, listen, you're going to stay at home? You don't even have any children, okay? But you get to stay home and not work, and you can go out and buy whatever the fuck you want, and you're never responsible for the debt of whatever it is you go and buy. You think that they would think that you were oppressing them?
You make too many generalizations. Men nowadays aren't doing that for women. women
Yeah, I
have
know,
to
I
have
know.
financial
I
stability.
know that they're not doing that for women, but you were just complaining about this law that they couldn't have credit cards or bank accounts.
Yeah.
And I was explaining to you why that law existed. It makes a lot of sense why it existed. Because you're tying everything to a single income for the family. And the optimal system and what was pushed inside of society and what's been tried to be dismantled by feminists and nuclear family. But we used to push the nuclear family. And so in order to make that optimal, which is dad, mom, children, you had to tie everything to one income. And people used to be able to afford to get a single car every couple of years. They'd be able to go out and get a brand new car,
Now they
bring it
can.
back.
They need a woman's
Because
income.
women went into the
Women-
workforce.
income.
Because feminism under rich industrialists flooded the market with cheap factory labor, which is what industrialists wanted. Cheap ass factory labor, and
Didn't-
that's where women came from. Cheap ass factory labor, and that's
And they're
what
still doing this now. They're bringing in immigrants. They want to replace you with AI. Anything they can do to bring down the cost of labor is what these industrialists will do, and that's what they have done in the past. It was always a push by industrialists to push women into the workforce. So all of these ideas, this is a masterclass. All of these ideas of oppression, that's what women are going to bring up. Women weren't allowed to work. Not true. We have to stop with that. Women weren't allowed to get an education. Not true. Since we've been tracking education since I believe since 1890, women have always graduated high school at higher rates than boys. Girls have always graduated high school at higher rates than boys. Okay, women didn't go to college. They didn't choose to go to college, and they weren't allowed to go to certain colleges. Don't get me wrong, because there was certain levels of segregation. There are studies that show that when boys and girls are segregated in schools, they tend to do better because they can actually focus on school instead of just trying to fuck each other. So yeah, so they're going to point out that women aren't allowed to work. That's not true. They're going to point out women weren't educated. That's not true. Women were always really more educated than men. But either way, they're going to point out these different things. They're going to say, and then you can always point out the fact that men are the ones who go and die in war on women's behalf. If you're oppressing somebody and if you're showing hatred towards them, you would make them fight the wars. It's very simple. So this is just a masterclass on how to shut down all these fucking feminist talking points about past oppression and why that justifies women being assholes today. We have to stop conceding this idea that men were just slapping their wives and men were slapping their wives and dragging them throughout history. No, most of history was men and women working together to combat the harshness of nature. That's most of history. It wasn't just men slapping their wives and dragging them. That's just not real. That's the feminist lens, and it's a bunch of BS.
they cared about. That's why they never gave them the vote. People knew it even then, and that's why the 19th was passed rather than a referendum state by state.
I might agree with that, but my argument would be when men go to war, who is supposed to work in the factories?
Well, in that case, it was still mostly men who were designing weapons, things like this. What women were doing were low-skilled jobs. They'd put screws in packs. They'd work on an assembly line, putting a bolt in something. They were doing kind of the menial labor jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's funny is the girl who they used, the Rosie River girl, the girl who's holding up her fist saying, "We can do it," or whatever the slogan was. Apparently, she quit her job 3 weeks after working because it was too hard. So that's a little interesting part of history.
But
Getting paid less.
But those menial labor jobs would still have, well, paid less than who? The soldiers who were drafted and had to go off to war were often getting paid far less than what they were making at their jobs. So
Yeah,
I
which
mean,
would
it's an
mean
equal
women need to
yoking.
work even harder to provide for their family during that time. If
Yeah, but
men
what
are
I'm
being
saying is it's
conscripted, now women
equally-
have to
so-
manage the finances
yeah,
of
but
the
you
home.
can't complain that there was a yoking where, well, wait, women made less than men. It's like
I didn't
but
complain.
Men
I just
being
stated a
drafted
fact.
They would also make less than if they had stayed in those jobs. So it seems like that's a sacrifice that they should kind of be willing to make, right?
Okay, yeah, but we've conceded that there are times, like wartime, where women have to take on a financially providing role for families.
Instead of going and dying, terrible. It's awful. I mean, man, it sounds like they really had it rough.
Yeah, but that's not the point, is who has it harder. It's that shouldn't women be able to have independent control over their finances from the beginning then?
Well, even in wartime, right, when it came to this, what control do you think that they didn't have? They're still able to access these accounts. They just weren't responsible for them. They could get a bank account just through their husband's name. They just weren't responsible for the debt.
Yeah, so if they got too much debt for their husband, I bet they would come home and their husband would beat the shit out of them. You don't
What
see
kind of argument is that? Husbands weren't coming, they were coming home and fucking them. They weren't coming home and beating them. They were coming home and making, you think the first thing they thought when they got home was, hey, baby, where's all my money? Smack, smack, smack. Or do you think that after they hadn't seen a woman,
Based on the men I've seen,
that they haven't seen a woman after multiple years in a war theater and they got home, what do you think they were thinking about? Because I got to tell you, I don't think it was about where did the money go.
I don't just mean in a war theater. I mean just like from a day
Well,
out.
that's why the baby boomers came about. So there's actual data that probably suggests that there was a lot of baby making in that time when those dudes came back home.
Work, they come home, the wife spent too much
Physical
of your money,
evidence.
They're gonna beat the wife up. The Bible says the Bible says to raise your hand at your wife if she disobeys
then you should be able to demonstrate or show that women were being abused at these much higher rates, especially domestically. They were not. But what is happening is that children are now abused at a much higher rate because feminism has broken up the nuclear family. So what happens is women, they'll have almost all children now, not all, I'm sorry, but almost over half, last I checked, are not born in wedlock anymore, the children which are born. Single motherhood is at an all-time high, and it's going to continue to increase. And what happens is if you bring in a non-biological parent into the home, the chance of abuse for your children drastically increases.
Yep.
I mean, it drastically increases with a non-biological male parent.
Like even if you look at the rates of child abuse, women are significantly more likely to abuse children than men. And when men do abuse children, it's oftentimes the guy that a woman brings around their child. It's not usually ever the biological dad.
putting the responsibility of women on the lack of fathers, but you have to know that it's not completely on the responsibility of women. Right?
Well, I'm not saying that women bear a full burden or responsibility for a man abusing them, so they have to get a divorce, or any number of these different cases. But what I am saying is that women are far more likely to end these marriages at a much higher percentage. You're talking college-educated women like you.
When we talking about children out of wedlock, it's 100% the woman's fault. 100%, because it was your choice to sleep with the man outside of being married. That's a choice that women are choosing to make. You're choosing, and not only that, but women have so many ways that they can prevent reproductively not getting pregnant. I mean, it's just you have condoms, you have Plan Bs. Worst case scenario, you have abortions, you have abstinence, and obviously abortion isn't my favorite strategy. I'm pretty against it, but I'm saying you have so many ways that you could prevent pregnancy, and the reason why women have the majority of the ways to prevent pregnancy is because they're the ones that bear the bulk of the responsibility of pregnancy. So women will talk about how hard, and feminists will talk about how hard pregnancy is and how overbearing it is on your body. Yeah, you're willing to just give something like that away to a dude that you just met randomly. So yeah, children out of wedlock is 100% the woman's choice because the woman is choosing to, number one, sleep with the guy out of wedlock. That's 100% the woman's choice, and also to carry the baby to term and not even protect yourself in any way when you have multiple ways to protect yourself. That's 100% the woman's fault.
Is 90% of the marriages which are ended are initiated by them. And then, it's about 67% of general marriages are ended by women, and it's for irreconcilable differences, not for abuse. It's not for abuse, it's like number 4 down the list is money. But the first one's irreconcilable differences. I just didn't want to be married anymore. Not because of abuse.
Yeah.
So
I forgot what point we were trying to build to.
Well, we were building in feminism being a destructive path to the nuclear family and how that's one of the primary reasons that I oppose it. And then I gave you example after example of how it has done that.
Okay. So you're saying because feminism is driving up divorce rates, that's why it's destroying the nuclear family.
That's only one reason. The other reason is because now it requires 2 incomes in order to raise a family, which means that more and more women have to send their kids off to public school. Public school gets extended longer and longer periods of time because it ends up being a babysitting platform for women, or for women's children. So basically, the public schools have now become your built-in babysitter, and then you have latchkey kids who come home, and you have these 2-income families. rather than having the mom at home.
And those schools have become indoctrination camps, and the results that they've been providing have been getting worse and worse. And people will say it's because of funding, but the American education system is the most funded education system. The American public education system is the most funded education system in the world, and you can look that up too. That's just the truth. So it can't be just about funding. It's an indoctrination camp. It's a big issue.
Which is, of course, optimal. And that's because we have 2 parents in the workforce, and we should really be trying to strive towards just 1 parent in the workforce. That would be optimal for the kids, right?
Why does that 1 parent in the workforce have to be the man?
Well, they don't have to be, but men can do most of the jobs that require that infrastructure requires. Women can still work. They work as nurses. In fact, they work in the same jobs that they kind of work in now. They gravitate towards, which is service work, clerical work, nursing. But what they don't gravitate towards is working on oil rigs, working on shipwrights, working on docks, working on infrastructure, AC control. They don't work on any of that stuff. And so, generally speaking, women can be in kind of these support societal roles, and that's fine. But it would be optimal if we were able to pull them back away from that more and more and more, and instead incentivize them to stay at home with their kids, because that would drive wages way up. That would be very helpful for society, and it would be better for the kids.
Yeah,
More men would have lower paying jobs, wouldn't it?
No.
Wouldn't that be the case?
No. So it's just supply and demand. So if you have the only cup in the world, it's worth a lot more than if everybody has the same cup, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's the same thing here. If you reduce the workforce by 50%, then they're going to be able to demand higher wages for the job vacancies, because now jobs are competing for them.
No, jobs wouldn't be. Oh, wait, hold on. You reduce the workforce. I told you I'm bad at math.
Yeah, guys, I'm going to end it here. I'll leave a link to the full video or the full podcast down below. But this is just a masterclass on how to end this nonsense, this idea that women have been oppressed throughout history, and so that justifies them being shitty today. Because that's what it's about. It's about the justification of women being horrible today is the fact that men were horrible in the past, and it's just not true. Number one, it wouldn't justify it either way, but it's also not true, and that makes it significantly even worse. But let me know in the comments below if this video was a W or L, and give me the HBO special. As a help brother out special, hit the like and the subscribe button for more content. Till next time.